Support Paws and Support Gear by Sunset Cougar. Chapter 17, Shocks and Shadows. Trigger warning for this chapter: mental health issues, minor violence, and electrocution all come up. So if any of these are a trigger for you, please feel free to skip the chapter and or have someone nearby to talk things out and discuss everything. Just do whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe, please. Having said that, let's go ahead and dive on in. Certain quirks were bad matchups. That was a fact. But it was rare that two clashed badly enough that both parties could be injured just by touching each other. Mizuno and Kaminari Denki were passing by each other in the cafeteria when Mizuno's tail hit Kaminari's ankle. Immediately, the two froze and then collapsed, electricity sparking along Mizuno's spikes. Their expressions were contorted in pain, but they seemed unable to separate themselves. "I'll get a teacher," Okita said, sprinting away. Luckily, Cementos had just entered the cafeteria, so she was able to get his attention quickly. It was also extremely lucky that since he was made of cement, he was immune to electricity and was able to pull Kaminari and Mizuno apart. The two lay on the ground, twitching and unconscious. Cementos pulled out his phone and sent a text, presumably to Recovery Girl. While he waited for her, Cementos cleared a circle around the two boys and a path to the door. A minute later, 4 medbots carrying 2 stretchers came into the room, followed by Majima and Aizawa. Kaminari and Mizuno were loaded onto the stretchers by Cementos and carted away, leaving their classmates to wonder if they'd be okay. Majima sat in the corner of UA's generator room, one hand on a lever that would turn off the wires currently pulling the excess electricity out of Mizuno. Kaminari was in Recovery Girl's office, a charging cord in his mouth so he could gain the stolen electric charge back. Apparently, when the two had touched, Mizuno's quirk had immediately latched on to the massive reserve that was Kaminari and started leeching the electricity out of him. Mizuno had been overloaded and Kaminari had been drained, leading them to their current predicaments. Thankfully, both were expected to get out unharmed, if not tired. About 10 minutes later, Majima cut the charge, disconnected the wires, using rubber gloves of course, and transferred Mizuno to a stretcher so the robots could bring him back to Recovery Girl's office, so she could keep an eye on him for a while. Izuku stared at the paper in front of him, racking his brain for ideas. He was trying to work on the wings. He wanted to work on the wings, but he couldn't focus. He propped his chin up with his hand, tapping the eraser of his pencil against the table. He sighed through his nose, the sound easily drowned out by his classmates, who were all busily working on their own projects. He hated days like this, when he needed and wanted to do things, but just couldn't. It was a hard feeling to describe, but he would say it was like there were weights all over his body and in his mind, dragging him to the floor and leaving him to become a barely functioning heap. Izuku's forehead hit the table. Clover rested her head on his lap and he rubbed her behind the ears. It helped a little. He turned his head when someone poked his shoulder. May was standing next to his desk, looking worried. "Are you okay?" Izuku shrugged. "It's one of those days. Everything's too much and it's going too fast. And I just want to lay down and sleep for a decade, but I can't. Every time I try, I start spiraling, and I feel like I'm going to be sick. I'm so tired. Is there anything I can do?" "Not really." Why don't you ask Power Loader to excuse you for the day? I'm sure he'd be willing to. Izuku thought for a moment before shaking his head. I don't want to be alone. Besides, the day's almost over. I'll be fine until then. Alright. Call me if you need anything. I will. That was a lie. Izuku wouldn't bother her. She already did so much, offering her time when she could be inventing her favorite thing. He didn't want to burden her more. He didn't want to burden anyone more than he already had, but he did just by existing. He wrapped an arm around his head, hiding from the world. Clover whined and crawled onto his lap, nuzzling into his chin and forcing him to raise his head. She licked him and he smiled a little, feeling a bit better. Do you want to watch a movie? Hitoshi asked Izuku after school. You look like you've had a rough day. Izuku took Hitoshi's hand. I would. Your dorm? Yeah. The two walked together in silence, pressed against each other's sides. When they got to the 1H dorm, they went straight to Izuku's room, where they wrapped themselves in a fuzzy blanket, with Clover at their feet, and chose a new animated movie that had recently come out. Izuku didn't really pay attention to the plot. He just lay with his head in Hitoshi's lap as his boyfriend ran his fingers through his hair, gently working out the knots and rubbing his scalp. For the first time that day, the voices that crept into his mind were more mind-like shadows were silent. It didn't take Izuku long to fall asleep. Rin sat in their room and tapped the end of their pencil against their cheek absent-mindedly as they looked over the videos of Class 8 1A Power Loader had given them per request. They loved costume design. It was their passion. And they honestly didn't understand how some of the hero classes' designs had gotten approved. Almost no one had any armor. The girls were half naked, or in one case 99% naked, and frankly a good chunk of the costumes were just plain ugly. They knew the girls' costumes were in the most desperate need of an overhaul, but they figured it was probably best to leave those to the female support corps students, so they turned their attention to the boys. They pulled out their sketch pad and picked the student with a bird head, who looked like he was wearing his parents' drapes. His name was Tokiyami Fumikage. The note on his costume design, also provided by Power Loader, were simple. He had requested something mysterious and worthy of a Dark Lord, while also providing a good, dark place for his quirk, Dark Shadow, to recover. It only succeeded in the last thing on that list in Rin's eyes. You seem like the kind of person who'd appreciate a good gothic aesthetic, Rin said to the picture of Tokiyami. They thought for a moment before an idea came to them. They leaned back in their chair and grinned. Victorian mall goth. Perfect. They started sketching, the image of the new costume design quickly coming to life. It was dark, it was edgy, it was practical, it was beautiful. Fumikage did not expect to find a folder on his desk when he entered his classroom for homeroom. A folded note was taped to the outside of it, so he sat down, took it off, and opened it to read. Dark Shadow peered curiously over his shoulder. Hello, I'm from Support Class 1H. I saw your costume design, and honestly, I think it could be improved dramatically, so I've sketched up a couple of new ideas for you. Of course, you by no means need to change your costume if you don't want to. It's your choice. I just wanted to toss you in my ideas. Hope you like it. Nakano Rin. Fumikage set down the letter and opened the folder. To be honest, both he and Dark Shadow were very disappointed in their costume. They had been hoping for something much more dramatic, that really spoke to the shadows and the darkness in their souls. Dark Shadow actually squealed when she saw the sketches. Tokiyami didn't do the same. It was rather undignified to squeal, but he liked the sketches just as much as Dark Shadow. I see you got a folder. Tokiyami jumped a little and looked up to see Aizawa standing behind his desk. Aizawa held out his hand. I should probably explain folders to the class. Can I please use yours as an example? I'll give it back after I'm done. You may, Tokiyami said, handing the folder and note over to Aizawa, who went to the front of the room and called the class to attention. As I hope you all are aware, UA has an entire course dedicated to support work, such as support gear and costume design. These students are often looking for any way to get closer to their goals, which often leads them to taking interest in the hero course. Aizawa held up the folder. Occasionally, a hero student will find a folder on their desk, in their locker, or somewhere else. I've seen them everywhere, from backpacks to inside shoes. These folders usually have a note, or some other indicator of who it came from, or at the very least which class it came from. If you like any of the ideas in the folder, after school you'll go to the classroom of the class you got it from, and talk to the students there. Be aware that it is against the rules for any support student to modify your costumes in any way without the direct supervision and approval of their teacher, no matter what they tell you. After school, Fumikage slung his backpack over his shoulder and split off from his classmates, intent on going to get his costume changed, when he realized he didn't know where the 1H classroom was. Looking for 1H? Shinso asked, stopping beside him. Fumikage nodded. Do you know where it is? Yep, follow me. The two were quiet as they walked the halls, and deciding she didn't like it, Dark Shadow popped out. So, how come you know where the classroom is? I go there to get my costume tweaked pretty often, Shinso replied. Two of the students there designed most of my support gear and costume, so they know it best. How'd you convince them to do that? Dark Shadow asked. We were friends for quite a while before UA. I didn't need to convince them. They asked. I think I'm kind of their test dummy in a way. Dark Shadow laughed, and after a moment of silence, Shinso said, I realize I don't actually know your name. I'm Shinso Itoshi. Tokiyami Fumikage. And I'm Dark Shadow. Shinso eyed Dark Shadow curiously. Are you sentient? Yep, Dark Shadow answered cheerfully. Cool. I had a classmate with a sentient quirk once. It was this funky little orange blob that ate candy and hugged sad people. Here's the 1H classroom. At least a few people should still be hanging around. Shinso's prediction turned out to be true. 6 students were in the classroom, with Power Loader at his desk in the front, going through paperwork. Shinso made a beeline towards the desk in the back of the room, where a boy with fluffy green hair and large glasses sat. Shinso bent down and kissed his forehead before turning to look at what the boy was working on. Fumikage wondered briefly if their relationship was platonic or romantic. Hey, you came! A cheerful voice said. It came from a boy with a pair of fuzzy brown stubs on his head and deer-like ears. I assume you were the one who left this folder for me? Fumikage asked, walking over to Nakano's desk. Yep. So, what do you like about the design? Nakano asked, leaning forward and intertwining his fingers, resting his chin atop them. Everything. Oh, excuse me. Everything, Dark Shadow said eagerly. It's so much better than our current one. We look like we're wearing a sheet. Fumikage nodded. What Dark Shadow said. Nakano's grin stretched to Cheshire Cat levels, and he pulled a measuring tape out of a drawer on his desk. Wonderful. So first I need to take a few measurements. Take off your uniform, coat, and tie. Fumikage obeyed Nakano's commands until he had all the measurements he needed. Now we get to the fun part, and start getting everything properly sewn, Nakano said with a grin, leading Fumikage into a closet off of the workshop that was filled with fabric. So how this works is I'll design the costume, and then I'll send it to one of the support companies UA works with, where they'll make any necessary adjustments to make sure it's actually hero grade. Then they'll send it back, you'll get your costume, and I'll get a list of improvements I can make in the future. Now, which of these blacks do you prefer? The one on your left, Fumikage said, pointing. Good pick. This one has more violet undertones, which will match well with Dark Shadow. Nakano had Fumikage go through thread, accent colors, materials, and more than a dozen shades of black, dark red, and dark purple. Eventually, they had a good-sized pile of materials, and Fumikage was completely lost. He had no idea how Nakano was planning on making the stuff on his desk into a hero costume, but he supposed he just had to trust the process. Chapter 18. Other classes. Alright. There are a couple of trigger warnings for this chapter. Explosions and menstruations listed here. I mean, if that's a trigger for someone, do whatever you need to stay safe. Sorry, I'm tired. I'm recording this after work. But anyways, that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the chapter. 1H were eating lunch together in the cafeteria when they were approached by two students. One had short, curly black hair, dark brown eyes, warm brown skin, and was built like a swimmer. At least his top half was. His lower half was a long tail that mostly rested in a pouch underneath the seat of his wheelchair. It resembled a koi betta fish's, except much longer. If Izuku had to guess, he'd estimate it was around 10 feet long, not including the caudal fin. The second person looked like a stereotypical ghost. She was see-through, had chest-length, white hair, pure white eyes, and snowy skin. Hello, the ghost-like girl said with a smile. My name is Isuri Yamiya, and this is Hatori Kenichi. She gestured at the boy and he waved. We're the class presidents of classes 1F and 1G respectively. We figured we should probably introduce ourselves, since we're automatically rivals being in different classes and all. I'm 1H's class president. My name is Okita Rika. Toph Bjorn is my vice. Toph waved to indicate it was him Okita was talking about. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you as well. I've heard you guys already got the attention of some of the 1A kids, Hatori said, immediately getting down to business. Yep, I'm redoing the costume of the kid with the bird head in 1A, Nakano said. So don't try to take him. May and I made most of the costume and support gear for the boy with the fluffy purple hair in 1A, Izuku added. Where are suppliers? Got it. I'm planning on talking to the girls from both classes. Their costumes aren't great, Isuri said with a frown. Then she spotted a group of said girls a few tables away, just sitting down with their food. Seeing an opportunity, she excused herself and walked over to them. She didn't make a sound as she moved, just like a movie ghost. Realizing the competition was now on, Okita jumped from her seat to go promote 1H.
Well, I suppose we'll see who's the best support class in our year,
Toft said, shaking hands with Hattori.
That we will,
Hattori agreed.
I wish your class the best of luck with your inventions.
I wish the same to yours,
Toft replied. Higari was sitting on a couch in the staff room, enjoying his lunch and a mug of coffee. He wasn't on cafeteria duty today, so he got a peaceful lunch. Hey, Oh, excuse me. One sec. Hey, Madoka, he said as the 1F homeroom teacher sat on the couch across from his. That one had a gap in the bottom of the backrest for tails. Bondo Madoka had a mutation quirk called Dragon, which made her a primarily dark blue dragon. Her snout, horns, spike, throat, hands, lower arms, feet, lower legs, and the underside of her tail and wings were gold. Nomura Minako, the 1G homeroom teacher, sat in an armchair between the two of them. She had curly blonde hair, lavender eyes, fair skin, and was built like a 7'1" brick. Higari greeted her as well. How's your guys' day been so far? Madoka asked. After teaching together for 6 years, they were all on a first-name basis. My class is chaotic, to say the least, Higari replied. There's 2 students, Midoriya and Hatsume, who have known each other for a few years, and it shows. They work wonderfully together, but they're absolute menaces. They've caused more explosions than the rest of the class combined. Minako snorted. I was lucky. My class is pretty calm this time around. There hasn't been any major property damage or injuries. Not yet, at least. Lucky, Madoka said. My class managed to... Oh, lost my spot. One sec. My class managed to cause a gas leak, and we had to evacuate that whole corner of the school. We're lucky a fire didn't start, especially considering one of my students breathed fire. Higari winced in sympathy. That sounds bad. So, Minako, you claim your class is calm. What's the worst they've done? They put the vice president in a straitjacket and hung her from the ceiling because she said she would put milk. She put milk before the cereal. You're right, that is calm. I would have expected a crucifixion. Same here, Madoka agreed. Where did they get the straitjacket? I have no idea, but I'm afraid to ask. Higuro nodded. Sometimes it's just best not to know. All of a sudden, they all felt a chill go up their spines. They shared a look before bolting from the staff room to the cafeteria. Madoka and Higari yanked the students away from the box they were crowded around, while Minako used her quirk to create a force field around it. Less than 5 seconds later, it exploded, completely vaporizing the corner of the table it was sitting on. All 3 teachers turned to look at the culprits. They were from Class 1G. Minako sighed deeply, shoulders slumping. So much for her having the calm class. Kasumi was miserable. Rolling waves of pain in her gut made her nauseous as she held the heat pack over it, wishing it did more. She hated being female. She hated that her body did this every damn month. She hated how much it hurt and how much time she wasted scrubbing blood out of her clothes and sheets. There was a knock at her door and Kasumi called. Who is it? Okita, the class president called back.
You didn't show up for class this morning, so I came to check on you. Can I come in? Yeah.
Okita opened the door, and as soon as she saw Kasumi, her face filled with sympathy.
Are you on your period? Yeah. Is there anything I can get you?
Kasumi thought for a moment before answering.
Can I have some chocolate? Of course. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
True to her word, a couple of minutes later, Okita returned holding a bar of chocolate. Kasumi took it, broke off a square, and put it in her mouth, letting it dissolve.
Thanks. You're amazing. It's no problem,
Okita assured.
I'll tell the teachers you're not feeling well. Before I go, is there anything else you want or need? No, I'm good. Thanks again. You're welcome. I hope you feel better soon. Feel free to text me at any time if you need anything.
Okita insisted on giving the whole class her number so they could contact her about any problems. She took her role as class president very seriously. Okita left to go back to class, and Kasumi rolled onto her side, closing her eyes to try to take a nap. Hitoshi wasn't sure how it was possible to love someone this much. He didn't fully understand all of the emotions that came with love, like the way his heart seemed to swell every time he looked at Izuku, or how butterflies appeared in his stomach whenever they touched. Logically, he knew he was still in the honeymoon phase of his relationship. Logically, he knew most teen romances didn't last. But for once, he put aside logic and just let himself feel. He let himself feel giddy and warm and happy. Happiness had been a rare emotion in his life before his parents adopted him, so he basked in every little bit he got. Hitoshi was sitting on his bed, Izuku in front of him and Clover's head on Izuku's lap. Hitoshi hummed quietly to himself as he ran the brush through the thick green curls, working out the knots. Izuku's eyes were closed and he wore a content expression. His hair stopped just past his shoulders, not long enough to be a bother, but not so short it couldn't be pulled back. Hitoshi's humming unconsciously turned to quiet singing. So he starts singing something just like this. My voice is like rough today, so I won't be singing, but yeah. Hitoshi continued singing, slowly raising his voice from the whisper he had started at. He loved singing, but so many years of being told his voice was a curse made him reluctant to do so. When he reached the end of the song, Izuku looked over his shoulder and said, "That was beautiful. I didn't know you could sing." Hitoshi shrugged, a bit embarrassed. "I don't do it often. Most people don't like hearing my voice." "Well, I like hearing it. It's beautiful, no matter if you're singing or just talking. I could listen to your voice for hours." Hitoshi's cheeks grew hot and he was sure he was bright red. He smiled at Izuku, knowing he definitely looked love-struck. "I love you so much." "I love you just as much," Izuku replied, smiling back. "Let's switch spots. You pamper me so much, I have to return the favor. I can also listen to more of your singing if you want to." "Alright," Hitoshi agreed, setting down the brush. They switched spots and Izuku started brushing his hair. Hitoshi had a sensitive head, so the brush sent pleasant tingles through him as it ran over his skin. This kind of attention also helped with his headaches, which was a big bonus. Hitoshi took a deep breath and started singing again, this time a song he'd listened to countless times. It made him feel hopeful and like he could truly reach his dreams, no matter how high they were. Alright, I'll be honest, I do not know this song. Alright, but Izuku soon started tapping his foot to the beat of the song. Then he asked, "Dance with me?" Hitoshi grinned and got to his feet, turning his phone speaker up as he started playing the song. He took most of Izuku's weight as they started dancing, Hitoshi singing along to the music. There was so much worth fighting for. So he would keep fighting, even when he felt like it was impossible. He'd keep fighting and he'd take the path he wanted, even if he had to pave it himself. Izuku tripped and fell onto the bed, dragging Hitoshi down with him. They lie there laughing and grinning so hard their cheeks hurt. "I love you so much," Hitoshi said. "Can I kiss you?"
Yes.
Izuku agreed, so Hitoshi kissed him. Izuku leaned into it, face flushed.
You're so amazing.
Izuku murmured when they pulled apart.
I don't know how anyone could ever doubt that.
I don't know how anyone could say you'd amount to nothing, Hitoshi replied. You'll rewrite the stars. Put them where you want so the sky itself spells out your name. Then everyone will have to see you.
Oh.
I now have the name of the second song. It's Don't Wanna Be by The Score. So that's a song you can pull up if you want to listen to it. I really liked both chapters. Unfortunately, I do have to cut this one a little short today because I have to go, so I don't want to lose this recording. But I will upload another chapter of this in a few days. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to comment down below. I do my best to answer every comment. And I really look forward to seeing y'all in my next video, which will probably be up tomorrow, at least one. So, big hearts, and ciao for now, everyone.